Can we start this thing yet? Give me a second, I'm having a Twitter debate. How do you spell Pacioretty?
Oh my god, finally! Good old Canadian player.
Country!
Deal with it. Elon Smash!
Owen GraBITEski.
GTFO.
I got it from afar. Not many whys, but a ton of what ifs. Leafs win 6-0 over the Montreal Canadiens. Alright, I have a pretty good idea of how YouTube works, so let me disappoint you right off the bat. I am not going to in-depth analyze anyway their GraBITEski Pacioretty incident. I talked about it for like an hour over like 50 tweets on Twitter. I'm exhausted. I don't want to do it. And this video would get so many more views. It would get so many more shares. It would be linked to a bunch of places if I talked about it and made some points. But I'll mention it briefly later and then be done with it because these are my videos and I don't want to. You choose how you're going to carry on based on that information. Because after years of the Leafs sucking and me being accused of being way too hard on them, in the same breath I get accused of being a Leafs homer, and I just, no. And the Leafs are finally on the winning end of a huge beating, and I'm going to waste half the video talking about that. Never know when the Leafs are going to win 6-0 ever again. Let's just enjoy it. Now let me start by saying I've been impressed with how good the Habs have been so far this season, and I'm shocked the Leafs killed them. And even if it's a good team, you can throw them off right away by a quick goal. Nikolai Kulemin to Leo Komarov. First career goal for Leo Komarov and first ever goal scored by an Estonian-born player. A little bit more background on Leo Komarov because I got to study him a little harder in the KHL and I actually got to meet the guy. He is an Estonian-born Finnish national team player who can speak Swedish and Russian and growing English. He can chirp in 5 languages, or considering he's the only Estonian in the NHL, 4. And someone tweeted me this idea before the season even began and I loved it. The idea of a Komarov, Kulemin, GraBITEski line. And the argument immediately goes to, well, neither of those 3 guys are the same player. Now, this is weird because I'm not a pro scout, this is just my opinion, so feel free to call me an idiot. But I don't think Komarov, Kulemin, or GraBITEski are the same type of player, but they play a similar type of game. They all grew up, they developed their game playing the European style. And against the Habs, the main purpose of this line, heading into the game anyway, was to have them as more of a shutdown line. 3 pretty defensively responsible players playing a suffocating shutdown role while the Kessel, JVR, Bozak line and the Kadri, Frat, and MacArthur line do their thing trying to score. And while I like that and think that could be a really good shutdown line, in the KHL, that could be like a super offensive line, just based on what I've seen. And I kind of like the idea of having a line that's purpose is to shut down, but they can score if you goof up. I mean, I love a guy like Jay McClement on the penalty kill, but you're not going to see him do anything like that really 5-on-5. And last thing about Komarov, link in the underbar to a video I did with my friend Andrea Sadchenka. We actually interviewed Leo Komarov at the Hockey Hall of Fame, or really we just walked around the Hockey Hall of Fame with him. His English is pretty meh, but he speaks a bunch of Russian and we translate it. Tyler Bozak makes it 2-0, or Butler Flozak, I want that to catch on so bad. And I haven't always sang his praises, but I like Tyler Bozak this season. Not even his play, it's his aura. Even during Kessel's crazy 10-game drought, Bozak was like, everybody chill out, I got this. And then very last play of the first, the Habs make the Leafs look very silly. Buchanan wins a faceoff, blows by Koska, goes around the net, Gionta's left alone in front in the panic, and they almost scored if they hadn't shot it wide. And the Leafs with just a 2-0 lead heading into the first intermission against a team that's doing pretty well in a rivalry that has been known to be a gong show. This game's not over. But second period, JVR scores his team-leading 7th on a beautiful feed from Kessel. And you know, Don Cherry, you know how he feels. Good old Canadian boys. But last night, again, he criticized Brian Burke's tenure as Leafs GM for going after the American college guys too much. But this season, the Leafs look like this. Leading the team with 7 goals, James Van Riemsdyk, an American out of the University of New Hampshire. Second in goals with 6, a Canadian named Matt Fratton out of the University of North Dakota. Third with 4 goals, a Canadian out of the University of Denver, Tyler Bozak. And let's not forget who the team's best offensive player is. Even when he's not scoring, he's still setting up pretty plays. Phil Kessel, University of Minnesota, American. I don't care who you are, where you're from. Are you a good hockey player? Well, that's great. Welcome to Toronto. Here's a jersey. Speaking of which, Phil Kessel did score again to make it 4-0. Back-to-back games. Where'd all the trade Phil Kessel articles go? Do you see him? I don't see him. And this is how you know the Habs were just falling apart last night. 5th goal, Colton Orr, stopped, but on the rebound, Corbinian Holzer, 5-0. Speaking of I don't care where you're from as long as you play well, playing over 22 minutes, scoring his 2nd goal of the season, Corbinian Holzer. And before I talk about those stupid scrums, 2 things that got lost in all the BS was the often criticized captain of the Leafs, Dion Phaneuf, probably not put in the best position to succeed. He got his first of the season. And James Reimer, not just a shutout, A 37 save shutout. On almost any other night, that is the front page story on every newspaper with some witty headline about Transformers. And it's almost like when you give a guy the proper amount of time to recover from a brain injury, it pays off. Weird. I don't want to open up that can of worms. I'm not a neurologist, or his mum, so don't call me. What I'm trying to say is good for Reimer. Now, briefly going through the scrums, Pruss shouldn't have done what he did to Komarov. Pacioretty shouldn't have done what he did to GraBITEski, and likewise GraBITEski probably shouldn't have done what he did to Pacioretty. What else? Colton Orr probably shouldn't have taken that huge run at Giunta, or was it Plekanec? It was Plekanec. Probably shouldn't have hit Bork. Bork probably shouldn't have gotten his face. That whole third period just probably shouldn't have happened. And this is one of those situations where I constantly criticize the Leafs' fourth line. I don't like that Orr's always out there, or Fraser McLaren's always out there. And I hate that they're out there in this sort of situation, but I kind of like that they're out there in that kind of situation. And the argument's almost like, I think we should stop fighting. I agree, let's stop fighting. How about you put down the gun? How about you put down the gun? 5 hours later, I'm bored. And again, this is the thing where it's like, my bread and butter is if you watch my stuff and click my stuff and give me web hits, and talking about this sort of stuff gives you that. But in these discussions and debates that everyone has, it just leads to nothing, and I don't have time for that anymore. And here's the thing, love them or hate them, no one's leaving the room during a fight. You're gonna watch, but the fact of the matter is, scrums like this are just common. So I tell you what, if you want to talk about all the crap and craziness that happened at the end of the game, there's the comment box. Have fun. I'll provide links to the video. There's Hockey Night in Canada viz of the alleged GraBITEski-Pacioretty incident. There's an alternate angle from RDS. There's a picture that popped up on HF boards that shows perhaps a bite mark or something on Pacioretty's wrist. He's certainly bleeding. And I think I'll end it off right here because as much as this Leafs Habs game went nuts at the end, how about the Lightning Flyers game pretty recently? Oh, I'm sure this won't get out of hand at all.